All right, good morning. Welcome to George's Grit and Lore, one of my new channels, just for the heck of it. So we're going to talk about, today, we're going to talk about the trucking industry. What happened in, was it 1993 or 94 when I started? What the trucking industry was like then and what it's like now, and what's happened in between. So it should be an interesting video if you can stick around. If you don't, that's okay. I still like to get this information out. Sooner or later, somebody will actually watch it. But that's okay. We're going to sit here and do story time. I was thinking that for a catch, but it's probably not going to work. Anyway, so 1993 when I started, it was actually difficult to get a CDL. I mean, they made it hard to get a CDL because it was considered an honor to be a truck driver at that time. Now, once I got at the CDL, I went 4 weeks of training, learned basically nothing, then basically how to get the truck down the road and how it works. But the way I learned things is talking to the older drivers after I got out of training and took all the training courses they could offer as far as safe driving and business courses and whatever else the companies I was working for at the time did. Now, truck drivers were different too, because when you were on the road, you used a thing called a CB radio. You should have it on channel 19. Well, you listen to the AM, FM radio or, George Norrie or Art Bell or anybody else on the radio, talk shows, because talk shows are more entertaining than listening to music because you listen to the same thing over and over again. It gets old. Sometimes you just want to turn it off and talk on the radio. Now, the CB radio was a good thing. Nowadays they won't use it, but now, CB radio was a good thing for truck drivers because the whole idea was to stay in touch with drivers 3 or 4 miles ahead of you. If there was an accident or a whiteout or a fog bank everybody's driving into, and, we didn't want the trucks to get into accidents because we had a higher safety rating for the whole industry than they do now. Or there was a DOT or whatever, somebody would get on the radio and say, hey, there's a fog bank here, break it down, we can't see anything. And we'd all put our four-ways on to slow down enough, and we hit the fog, we were prepared for it. Or an ice storm, or we found tornadoes, or a traffic accident in the middle of the road, you name it. Or a big sheet of ice on the road, when it come to, winter driving or crashes, we prevented 40 or 50 times the accidents involving big trucks than we do now. Back then, the only accidents that we had in big trucks were four-wheeler caused, or they were just drivers falling asleep and driving off the road and laying their truck over, solo accidents, or, pushing it too hard and trying to get into the wind. Now, there's a lot to talk about this on this one because, we all wanted to make money. And when I started, the logbook was only 8 hours. When we had to do logbooks, it was all paper. And it was only 8 hours a day you could drive. But many of us didn't just drive the 8 hours. We drove the 12 hours and it made our logbook match. So the logbook would run for 8 hours. You'd write down the city name on a notepad you usually had taped to your steering wheel that you were passing through in 8 hours, so you could look it back up on a map and put it in your logbook that you slept there for another 8 hours. And then time you got your 12 hours and then you took your 10 hours sleep, the logbook had caught up to you, and you could go on down the road. And yeah, we did make the logbook work for us instead of them. Nowadays you can't do that. Too many of us were pushing it too hard, throw one logbook in the sleeper, run another one, and keep going. But we kept the accident rate down. We didn't have presidents destroying it. Presidents were actually proud of the trucking industry. They did, the governments and cities, they did everything to keep the trucking industry safe, but they didn't try to penalize the trucking industry because they thought they were a bunch of idiots. They realized that the trucking industry was the backbone of the United States commerce. Without the trucking industry, nothing moves. So if you destroy it like they've been trying to do lately, you're not getting anything, and everything. You look around your house or your car or, outside, everything in the city was once upon a time on a truck. It doesn't matter what it is, building. Most of that was on a truck. They had to get it to the site somehow. The steel girders, the concrete, the windows, all that stuff was made someplace else across the country or across the world, but it was on a truck. And, that's what people don't forget. And then traffic, four-wheelers and all that. We used to use a CB radio to talk about traffic coming through a city. Like Dallas, Fort Worth, if we had a traffic jam, we didn't just drive into the backup like they're doing now. We knew that we had to break down and slow down, and the CB radio gave drivers enough time to actually slow down before they got into the traffic jam. Nowadays, they don't use a CB, so you pop over a hill, 50 feet down the road, you got a traffic jam, and it takes 300 feet to stop that truck or more. So that's why those accidents happen. People get killed. And that truck is 80,000 pounds of death, basically. If you don't know how to operate it or manage it, that's what it is. So we used to also have parking spots too. We had to get in. So when I was doing it after I got on the road and got my bearings on how the whole thing worked and started taking training courses, I mentioned in 1996 I bought my own truck. So I'd saved enough money working for somebody else to actually buy the truck outright, and it was $102,000 for the truck I bought, which of course was a Freightliner Classic with a square nose, so it had the big tall sleeper, because the Peterbilt sleepers weren't as big as those double sleepers for the Freightliners. And I bought a Detroit instead of a Cummins or anything like that, because at that time the Detroit was the best motor on the market. It had the best fuel economy, it had the best strength, it was bulletproof, and I got a Super 10 with that. So I had to drive a stupid 10, which is basically you shift a gear, split a gear, you keep going, and you get all the way up to 10. It was a five gear main box with split in every gear as you go through. When you get into 10th, you were probably doing 55, 60. And then we still had the California problem because of the speed limit difference. They were using speeding tickets or any kind of ticket on a truck to balance their budget, which, now they have got too many trucks going in there, so they don't have as much access to money through the trucking industry to actually do it. And, they were and still are checking for fruit flies and bugs coming into the port through fruit. And they'll crawl through a load of oranges or fruit, any kind of oranges or fruit that come from anywhere but 3 states over. So if you pick it up in New York, which would have come off of a container, and taken it to California, when they get to the California border, they're going to open your truck and crawl through it and open as many boxes as they can looking for fruit flies or bugs of any kind. Because before that, they had an infestation that came from, Florida or something, for the oranges, that basically decimated the whole fruit industry down there in California, which right now I can't see any growing industries in California because they fake the drought. In the Central Valley area, they don't grow anything anymore down there because they fake the drought. there's a lot of stuff that happened. So I managed to make 20 years on the road when my business closed in 2007 because I was trying to expand my business because I had a friend who wanted to do the whole owner operator thing, and but he didn't want to actually own the truck himself. So when I leased a truck from CR England, I thought maybe I could get me another truck that looked similar to the one I had, same colors and all that. Leased the truck for a couple of years, then move on to buy another truck, same principle I did before. But I didn't realize CR England had it set up so that you couldn't make any money, team, single, training, driving one of their trucks, working for them, and you would go bankrupt in a year. Well, it took me 2 years to go bankrupt, and I was using the profits from the other truck because I was not only driving, but I was dispatching and taking care of HR and payroll too from the cab of the second truck, which was my mistake. That wasn't a good idea. I should have leased the truck and put another driver in that one and just stayed at home doing dispatching and just start building a fleet. But that was my mistake. I learned that after the fact. And the CR England basically was eating my money up, and I was actually part of their class action lawsuit. So when the business failed, like a big snowstorm up on Donner Summit, everything just kind of showed up at once and then went away. But it was fun doing it for all them years. I made pretty good money doing that, owning a truck. But you had to set it up right. You had to play the game with taxes and lawyers and LLCs like the big companies do to actually make any money, because Swift and all the big companies, they don't own their trucks directly. They have the trucks owned by an LLC. They lease their trucks to the trucking company. So at the end of the year or each quarter, they can deduct the trucks, trailers, fuel, licensing, everything to do with that truck off their taxes and let the U.S. government pay them. So essentially what they're doing is getting their road taxes back and all the fuel taxes and everything else that goes into taxing trucking companies nowadays or then. And every year they're making up some new tax to keep safety on the roads or, put more money in their pockets, so to speak. Just moving it around is all they're really doing. But, it makes the public feel better. Then 2007, I lost that. I signed on to a local company to run to run around locally first because I didn't want to be on the road no more. And that worked out for a couple of years. But the company didn't realize the good thing they had when they set it up, so they decided they wanted to close off or, use the truck, run the truck more than it actually, was set up because they were trying to find a way to make profit. I couldn't blame them. But that's where the trucking industry was still going strong in the right way in 2007 because we were starting to see the fact that people, the younger generation didn't want to use the CB radios, but there were still enough people driving trucks that would use the CB radios. And the only women from 93 to 2007 that were actually on the road were wives, or they were so masculine that you didn't want anything to do with them, or they were just lot lizards. And a lot of guys did carry 3 or 4 women around with them, so when they parked at night, the women could go work the lot and make them money. But those were nasty things, the lot lizards, because the women would jump from truck to truck to truck, do the deed, then not clean up in between. And truck drivers were never known for being the cleanest people on the planet. Well, we did take showers in the truck stops. That was either fuel the truck up or pay $5 or $10, which was deductible on your taxes if you worked it out right, even a company driver. But still, truck drivers didn't really have time to go see a doctor if they got something from one of the lot lizards. And yeah, I did try the lot lizards for about 6 months, and then after that, I worked at after I owned my own trucks. I got my own loads from Reno to LA to Vegas, and then Vegas to Arizona to Utah, then Utah back to Reno. Then every time I crossed the Nevada border, I could always stop and use legal means to solve the problem without having to break the laws with the lot lizards, because prostitution is illegal unless it's in Nevada, in the brothels, not on the streets, but in the brothels. But I did that for years, and then every once in a while you'd meet a woman when you had time that wanted to ride around with you. They only lasted about a year, because it is boring to sit in that passenger seat and ride there for 10 hours a day. Then all you want to do when you get done is go in and eat, take a shower, and go to sleep. And usually for their protection, you want them in the shower with you and around close, because there are some weirdos driving the trucks, and then there are some PhDs driving trucks too. People driving around in business suits. They give up the 9-to-5 grind and the big multi-million-dollar offices and chose to go drive a truck because they like it. I've seen lots of people running around with suits, or just raggedy clothes. And if you didn't watch what you were doing as far as eating, because you get bored and you get a bag of chips, you're just kind of doing that for habit because you're bored going down the road, until you learn how to keep yourself from being bored, because there's always something different on the road, no matter how many times you drove it. No matter how many times you've been there, if you look for the differences, you're not bored. Pay attention to what the four-wheelers are doing, and following distance, and paying attention to the mirrors, and not yielding for the people coming off on the freeway. It usually causes a traffic jam in a big city, but you got to hold your speed and direction, and talking on the CB, everybody knows what's going on around you, or at least within a mile, because nobody pays attention when they're going on. If you keep your following distance, around the exits, people will get in front of you, but you don't have to be first. Then they're supposed to adjust, let you go by, then follow behind you, but nobody keeps following distances. So if you don't jam on your brakes in the city and get somebody forcing their way in, traffic's just going to slow down. If you're following too close, that's what causes traffic jams. And the only reason why they mandated trucks to the right lane is to break up the traffic jams, because in the 60s, after they built the highway interstate system for commercial trucks, they let trucks have whatever lane they want. And if all the trucks were all the way out with the four-wheelers or the cars, they would jam themselves up and have to sit there for 6 to 10 hours. But when you put trucks into the mix, and they're taking time to get going because they're so big and heavy, it takes that 6 to 10 hour wait traffic jam to 2 or 3 hours. So that's why they did that. Now, when I lost my CDL in what was it, 2010, 2016, somewhere in that area. It was during Obama anyway, I know that much, because I couldn't pass the physical with my lazy eyes, because they changed something in the code at that time, which pushed me out. The company I worked for wouldn't put me on a day shift because I was working nights running San Francisco, and I did that for 8 years, crossing over Donner Summit, which I thought was a fun ride. I liked it, even in the winter, because it was more challenging, because you had to deal with not only Caltrans, but that mountain that took has been taking lives from 1948, probably before that, but 1948, and all the way up till, well, right now, they're killing people up there on the hill because nobody's paying attention to what they're doing. They're just trying to get there as fast as they can, and the "I got to be in front" syndrome kills people all the time, or "I got to be first." Either way, they've even made country songs about that. I'll let you look those up. But modern day drivers, before I move on to what happened after I lost my CDL, modern day drivers, they don't use the CB radio. From Obama all the way up to present, they've been pushing the White House and all the government have been pushing women to be truck drivers, which makes it dangerous. Because women will not use the CB radio, because every time they talk on the CB radio, they get talked to like they're streetwalkers or lot lizards. The whole CB will go noisy. "Hey, baby, come over here. Come over, visit me. I've got $40 for you," or whatever the going price is nowadays. It's probably close to $40 or $50. Lot lizards were never expensive. Then, so right now, personally, I see women with CDLs. They're either going to be overweight, which they put new laws in place, so you can't weigh a certain amount, or they'll take your CDL away or suspend your CDL so that till you lose the weight. Now, I got up to 600 pounds, so I'm not complaining about that. I did it too, and I know how I got it done when I was running local routes. I went to the gym and worked it off. It took me a year to go from 600 pounds down to under 2, or around 200 pounds. It took a long time to get there. It took a long time to get it off. Now, they don't talk on the CB radio no more, ever since the cell phone, and a lot of women talk to their friends back home on the cell phone with a hands-free device. A lot of guys do it too. They talk to somebody else all day long so they're not bored, but they don't use the CB radio, which, the accident rate is higher. Not to mention the illegal aliens, or the Spanish, or the Iranians, or all those being on there. Those guys don't even learn how to properly drive the truck safely, and some of them will some of the illegals will put 3 people to a truck, which is legal. That way you can keep the truck running 24/7. It's difficult with 2. But instead of they wanting to stop less, so, the bathroom, they put a hole in the floor and then put a bucket over the floor. And that's what they use for bathroom number 1 and number 2, which destroys the bottom of the truck with all that stuff under there. They've been doing that since I've been driving, but it's becoming more prevalent now, so I would imagine, not knowing which truck's going to do that, you'd want to have some serious following distance behind him. In case there's a three driver truck, 1 in the sleeper and 2 in the front seats. And they're doing that kind of thing. You wouldn't want that mess to end up on your windshield or your car, because even if you get it blown off right away with a pressure washer or run it through a car wash, the acids in that stuff will actually eat your paint. And they do that a lot. And now trucks are not really safe anymore, because they're not really training safe driving at the trucking companies, because they quit hiring consultants to train their drivers, like the Smith system or the Carlos system, or what was some of the others? The Roger was one of them, and a Kanban system was another one, and basically just a bunch of people trying to make money, trying to figure out the science of driving. Well, they figured out the science of driving way back in the 40s when trucks come on the road. And they learned it all out of that, and the USDOT can tell you all the science. You just got to go read the rules and regulations and figure out why. like following distance. Nobody follows it. They run basically 65, 70 mile an hour, 80 mile an hour, bumper to bumper. And if you're not looking at, and when you're not following close, or when you're following too close, the only thing you can look at is the taillights in front of you. You can't look around. But if you give them the proper following distance, like the DMV book says, 3 to 4 cars, you can know what's going on all 4 sides of you before you get into an accident. Be able to adjust or stop without rear-ending the vehicle in front of you. If you're one of those guys that traffic stops and you got a bigger vehicle than everybody else, and you got to hit the shoulder to avoid hitting the car in front of you, you're following too close. And if you hit the car in front of you, it's your fault, not the driver in front of you or traffic like that. You're going to pay the bill for both cars. Your insurance is, which causes insurance rates to go up because they got to pay because people don't pay attention to the rules of the road. But I can't blame them too much because most people only drive their cars for 15 minutes one way to work. They park it. They don't do any more driving. And they've got a good bead on things on how to drive their cars. But the whole safety in trucks has just gone up. They put more illegals. You've seen crashes all over the place where illegal drivers have killed 15, 20 people. The mainstream news quit talking about it. But if you watch the truck driving channels that trace that, or even the DOT page, USDOT.gov or DOT.gov, the federal DOT, they trace that right on their website, how many trucks are getting in an accident and where. And they tell you about the ones that are more severe. Like I saw one on there, like in Texas, a lady truck driver was driving a gasoline tanker. She got in an accident and the whole thing just blew up because the tank got ruptured and there was a fire in the car that caused the accident. And she didn't have no warning. She didn't have any pre-thought that the intersection was full of cars or the traffic had stopped on the road in front of her. There were other trucks there. They interviewed them. They all said, yeah, we knew there was traffic accident. We have no way to talk to each other. So, the CB radio would have helped in that. It would have saved her life. But, she wouldn't have been talking or listening to the CB radio anyway because it's too noisy. That's how people think about themselves. But, if you're working together with the other truck drivers as a team, sort of, you're all competing against each other for the loads. But, and that's another thing. It was so much easier to get a load out of warehouses. Nowadays, it's difficult to get a load out of a warehouse because they shorten up the area you got to back in. Instead of giving you enough room for the 53-footer, they shortened it up so like you got a 48-footer. And there were some warehouses that were old that had that problem. But they also use yard trucks to solve the problem for you. They'd take the trailer, put it in the door for you. Nowadays, they make the driver do it himself. Especially the unions. Those are a pain in the butt. Go into a union, you got to hire somebody to unload your truck. They call them lumpers. And then it takes forever to unload a 25-pallet truck because they've stacked them to the roof. And then they've got to get them out. They've got to get them into the right size so the union can put it on their shelves. But the union people that work there are so spoilt they don't want to unload the truck and stack the stuff in there for their own racking. They got to have somebody else do it, and they put it on the truck driver. And they have done that for years. That's probably why I don't like unions so much, because we're all selfish, self-absorbed people. They get paid a whole bunch, but they don't do anything, and it's difficult to deal with the union at the ports too. And all I can hear is just got worse at the ports too with the union. Now they're automating most of the ports, so you don't get help when you go into the port to get the container you need if you have to take an empty chassis to get your load. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and they take breaks every 20 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever it is. So you can get halfway through getting your container out of the stack, and they'll be blowing a whistle to go to break. Then you got to wait for 15 minutes for them to come back. That was always a pain in the ass. But road safety has gotten worse over the years, far as I can tell. The U.S. DOT doesn't really enforce the laws anymore in the logbook because it's all digital. Most of it's digital. There's still small companies that use paper. They don't seem to be watching speed because a lot of drivers, they're running down the road faster. From what I've seen driving around the area, they'll do 60, 70, 80 mile an hour out on Interstate 80. And, you go into California, they're doing the speed of traffic when it's only 55 for trucks. They get into more accidents. Oh, look at that. They get into a whole lot more accidents. The crashes, people get killed a whole lot more because these drivers aren't getting trained and they're putting women in there. And knowing from the history of what I've learned about when women drive, which has made the four-wheelers, you just got to watch them more carefully. Now you got to watch the oversized four-wheelers too, because women don't think about what they're doing at the moment. They think about everything else. Like, what are they going to do when they get there? Or did they put the laundry in the bucket? Or that guy last night kissed real good. It's anything and everything else but what they're doing to pay attention to the roads. And since Joe Biden pushed women into trucking, the accident rate almost doubled. Then when California and all these Democrat states started pushing Spanish into the trucking industry, the accident rate for truck almost doubled another 100%. So, the governments don't really care about what the trucking industry's doing. They just keep trying to push the stupid stuff in there, like Gavin Newsom or who is it now in New York, Mandami, and all the other Democratic states are trying to destroy the trucking industry instead of support it. And that's, what's going on now. Now, as far as me, when I lost my CDL during Obama's administration, I was on unemployment for 2 years, and then I decided I was going to start a new business, but I had to get a job, so I went to Amazon. I got a new job when they were in Fernley, RN01, as they called it. Then when I got in there, I had to go to HR, just unloading trucks. I figured that'd be fine. I've done that before and paid my own lumper a couple times so I can get the money. Because I wanted the money at the time. I was money hungry for a while. Then I realized it wasn't worth the effort. But I went to unload trucks. They were paying decent, $20 an hour. But when I was there for the year or so, every time I turned around, I was going to HR because one of the ladies I was working with, being nice to, not really saying a whole lot about anything but what we were doing. I was in the HR, being called into the HR once a week or more. Then the lady that was in HR was always trying to incriminate me with something that I didn't do, even though it was all hearsay and rumors that they were working on. And, the woman's word, they didn't actually try to corroborate what she was saying or prove it wrong. Then the one guy there was one guy that was dating one of the women that I was talking to, or trying to date, one of the women I was talking to. And he was in HR acting like a woman and trying to fight me behind my back that way too. So when I found out they were doing that, I just told the HR people to keep those people away from me. And it solved the problem for a little while until the stories started getting made up, because I was saving money up to start another business. Then, something happened and they decided to fire me anyway, and I still don't know why I got fired from that job. I could never find out. Probably because I was a man. I didn't realize at the time, because I didn't pay attention to what everybody else was doing outside of the trucking industry for the longest time, and I had to learn why that women were attacking me, or men. So I learned that, and I traced the problem back to the schools, the colleges, because every woman with a college degree was always hateful towards men. It wasn't just me they were hateful, just any man. And this started in the 80s, but I found it to be women's studies that I traced it back to. So they also learned that you don't be nice to women, you don't talk to them when you're at work, mainly because of Amazon. So every time I saved money up, something would happen, so I couldn't get a business, and I'm still trying to get my own business, and, things are starting working right. I'm still not be able to get a business. I've been trying to buy a bar, and every time I go to the bank, they turn me down. For a while there, I was trying to get during Trump's first term, I was trying to find the money to buy a ranch. There was a $30 million ranch up in Montana that would have worked perfectly for me. So I did the right thing. I went and made me a business plan, took it to the bank, and they turned me down without even looking at it. They just took one look at me and decided they didn't want to work with me. So I went to another bank, and I was talking to another woman that wanted a business, and I told her, we'll just change the name on this thing from mine to yours, the business plan, and we'll both submit it on the same week, same day, to the same loan officer in the bank to find out if it was me or if it was the business plan. If it was the business plan, neither one of us would have got the loan. Well, it wasn't the business plan. She got the loan. She went and bought the piece of property and run the business plan until she went bankrupt and ended up moving to LA to do adult films. But the point of the matter is even the banks, the ladies in the banks are attacking men. And I proved it at the time and took it to the Federal Banking Commission or federal bank people, and they didn't do anything about it. Then, I had other banking problems with Bank of America. I decided I was going to buy Disney, so the Disney Corporation. Hang on. I decided I was going to buy the Disney Corporation, so I did a business plan for that. I took it to the bank. I'd been banking that for 30 years. They knew I was pretty good in business because, they were there for that. I took it in there, and I delivered the business plan for that and showed where I had to change things so that the Disney Corporation could, once again be a $40 billion company instead of an $11 billion company, or it was a $10 billion company at the time. They've gone lower since then, but, how that goes. And 2 weeks later, the bank had told me that I passed a bad check, which I hadn't put any checks in the bank at all, except for the direct deposit from the Manpower when I was working. And they went through this whole spiel and told me they closed my account. The fraud department banned me from ever having a bank account at Bank of America. All because I wanted to change a feminist institution to be what it was originally. I wanted to make Disney Corporation basically support the nuclear family because they are the key, or were the key, to what's going on with the culture wars right now. And then when I did it, then Wells Fargo did the same thing, and U.S. Bank did the same thing, so I stopped passing around the business plan to buy the business, or buy the Disney Corporation. Then several others I tried. I tried buying the Grand Sierra when it was for sale. I passed a business plan around for that because I knew the Grand Sierra wouldn't support itself as it stood, and it had to be modified and updated. And I had a plan for that, and the investor stole the business plan, went and bought the Grand Sierra for $1 million. It was for sale. It was pretty cheap, I thought. Thought it was a good deal because of what I wanted to do to it, or with it. And then he went bankrupt, but the plan still circulated around with whoever owned it. I guess it was in their files, and somebody modified it, and they're doing something similar right now to the Grand Sierra over years. But, I'm not going to try to prove that or stop them or anything else like that. The plan was stolen. And if they're using it, they only got 6 months worth of information. And if they're not any good at business, they'll go bankrupt. And I had another business plan stolen by somebody else a little earlier than that, another angel investor, for a dude ranch that was basically would have been out in the middle of nowhere with big modern skyscape, 20, 30-story regular hotel for those people that didn't want to live the cowboy way. And then in town, there was going to be like 2 to 4 hotels, and a strip with businesses on either side that I didn't know if I was going to rent them out or if I was just going to put my own stuff in there, but it was going to operate like it was a real town for tourists to come visit and see what the Old West was really like, not the TV version. And I was going to have actual working brothels, because if I put it out in Story County, I could have done that, on either side of the town, right in the town. Working bars, residents that actually, wanted to live that cowboy way, working there with houses and out around the town, kind of set up similar to Virginia City, but a little more spread out. A working cattle ranch that was down the way that I would have owned. And, a stable where they, you could rent a horse or rent a buggy at the end of town, which would have been at the end of Main Street. And then that would have been where you would learn how to ride a horse or drive a buggy, and you could take the buggy for the day and go visit the ranches around the area, or if it was close enough to a city, you could actually run the horses and buggy into the city and get stuff, because that's how supplies were going in. And then you would have to ride a stagecoach from the main hotel out to the dude ranch, or the town dude ranch, whatever you want to call it. And a stagecoach back, and the wheelchair access would have been difficult because there really wasn't anything in that era. But I had worked it out, so one of the wagons had a wheelchair access, or one of the stagecoaches had a wheelchair provisions in it. It would have been just one out of 20 or 30 that would have been running, and it would have been all horse-powered. 2 or 3 horses, and the deliveries would have come in wagons that looked like the Budweiser wagon they put on display. So that was there, and now here we are. I've recently lost my job, and I can't find a new one. I applied for just about everything, and I'm running low on battery, so I better wrap this up. I'll talk about this part later down the road, so please thank you for staying in. I got to change my battery in my recording device, or otherwise I'll lose sound. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll update you on the rest of this story later on in the videos, and we're going to get some science fiction stuff going too, so come back and watch for more.
Oh, sun ain't up, but I'm wide awake. Got 1,000 miles of road to take. This 18-wheeler's my steel horse, you see, rolling down the road to set my spirit free. Through sleet and snow and pouring rain, got that diesel running through my veins. 'Cause it takes a lot of grit. Yeah, it takes a lot of grit. Oh, sun ain't up, but I'm wide awake. Got got 1,000 miles of road to take. This 18-wheeler's my steel horse, you see, rolling down the road to set my spirit free. Through sleet and snow and pouring rain, got that diesel running through my veins. 'Cause it takes a lot of grit, yeah, it takes a lot of